both the sides of the continent to help startups come through these times and kick off their businesses and stuff like that.
Right.
And also kind of set the path for the future mentoring sessions and other webinars which are sector specific and things. So that will be the introduction that I'm going to start off with.
Sure.
And so I think among all of us, we will try and field all the questions on UK today.
Lovely. I think we're ready to go. It's 3:03.
Yeah. How many people are waiting?
Around 5.
Sorry, we didn't hear that.
Around 80 people are there in the waiting room.
I think then let's not make them wait then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Paul's having trouble getting in. I don't know if you can check that.
Sorry, Pete, what is that?
I think Paul is having trouble getting in.
Okay. Should we wait for a minute or two?
Okay. Let me just quickly check on that.
Then we can play the video. And
let's play the video and then get the new thing to him.
I see Paul in the waiting room. I've just let him in.
All right, perfect.
And sorry, all the speakers, to begin with, Gita, Abhishek, and Manish, please do not unmute yourself because we have kind of locked everybody else's ability to unmute themselves. My team will kind of look at when Paul and Pete have to come in and they will unmute them accordingly.
I'm on now, guys.
Hi, Paul. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Gita.
Hi. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
I've got a face for radio, Gita.
That's great.
I'll put some lights on. You get a better light.
So to begin with, I think Gita, Abhishek, and Manish, apart from me, you'll only be the three ones who will be unmuted. So be careful of your surrounding noise.
Yep. Sure.
And as and when Paul and Pete come over, we will kind of unmute them as well.
Sure.
And don't get, pulled into whatever discussions are happening on the chat. A lot of people use this chat even to, sell their products and services. So just don't get flustered by it. I'll only pick up questions that are more relevant to the topic and the flow of it.
Sure.
And if at all we find your video and lagging, somebody from my team will just prompt you to switch it off for maybe like a few seconds and then come back on like this.
Fine.
That's the whole idea. It takes a couple of seconds to a minute for the internet buffering again to kind of get back to full speed. So I think with that, let's kick off. I will not do detailed introductions because all the emails have your profile. At least some 7-8 rounds of emailing has already gone. So I'll do a top line introduction of who you are and then add to the story of what you have done and what your startup is. And
sure.
Okay then. Okay, folks. Best of luck.
You can start playing the video.
Should I start letting people in?
Yeah.
Aniket, play the video.
No, wait. Let everybody come in first.
Yeah, I've let people in.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next webinar of TIE Mumbai. It is indeed an honor today for me to be starting this new series of webinars. So far, we have heard a lot, we have spoken a lot, we have shown compassion towards each other in all these last 4-5 months. And now we're slowly moving towards the next phase of our webinars, which is we are trying to see if we can get business to you all. Can we start rebooting the startups by bringing cross-border business? And in that efforts, I'm really, really happy to say that TIE Mumbai has partnered with the Department of International Trade, UK. And in today's session, we will be trying to map various opportunities that is available in the UK currently. Maybe this session could be just an overall highlight, but this is a series of webinars with the UK government. And we will also be deep diving into sectors. We'll also be deep diving into setup issues. How do you go there? How do you expand your business and operations? Most of you might not know this, but UK is literally the stepping stone into Europe. Because of the legacy that we have with United Kingdom and London especially, a lot of Indian businesses have gone there, set up their first shops and expanded globally from there. So it's indeed my honor and pleasure today to introduce to you Gita Krishnankutty, who heads the investments for South India for DIT-UK from the British High Commission in Bangalore. I also have two interesting entrepreneurs and co-founders who basically have, some experience with UK. Manish, who is the founder and CEO of Neosap EdTech company. Now Manish has been working in the UK for 2 years, so he's going to, share his experience. I would request all of you to pick his brains through the chat mode, ask him all the questions of what he did when he went and set up over there. Interestingly, Manish actually has gone and built his product out of the UK, but the product is a global product. It can be kind of deployed anywhere. And the other interesting entrepreneur that we have is Abhishek Sharma. Our own Abhishek is from Goki. You all know Goki. Goki did an interesting test market about 2 years ago in UK. They tested a product with some of the hospitals and healthcare institutions over there. And Abhishek has also got his experience to share with. And I think now Goki has plans to kind of expand further in UK. So this webinar, I'm going to divide it into parts of where the UK government will come and tell how they can help you all. And then we have the two founders and entrepreneurs whom I'm going to quiz a little on their globalization strategy. What did they think of? Things as simple as when do you think a startup is ready to go global? So having said all that, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you my longtime friend. So I'm going to start off by giving all of them 5-7 minutes, and then we'll start off the panel discussion. So my longtime friend, Gita Krishnankutty. So Gita, over to you.
Thank you.
And set the stage for us.
Thank you very much. A pleasure on behalf of the UK government and the Department of International Trade. Thank you, Naveen. This is going to be the first of a series of webinars that we have pleasure in associating with TIE, one of our longest stakeholders. As you know, UK is obviously the entrepreneurial hub and has been for a while. So our association with TIE is not only a historic one, it's a very relevant one. So question to the audience, did you know that in the last financial year, India had close to 120 companies expand their existing base in the UK, and a couple more, I would say a couple more, that's a very sort of modest number, but I would say close to 100 companies set up in the UK, companies very much like yourselves in the audience, whom we met at events like this, and whom my team across India and my colleagues from the UK assisted personally to set up in the UK. So it's a great story. The UK is a really important investment destination for Indian companies. We have come up the league table, and we are second as the second place in the global league table as the highest, one of the nations with the highest number of FDI into the UK. We are a great job creator. India's created over 5,500 jobs last year. We've always been, before COVID times and for the last couple of years, we've been as well on one of India's been UK's one of the largest R&D partners as well. So research, entrepreneurship, next generation technology, this is what makes up the success story of the India-UK FDI heritage. I just wanted to focus for a few minutes on why it's important to use the UK government, why we're here, and why as a government we proactively assist globally minded companies and globally minded founders and entrepreneurs like yourself who are on this webinar today. As far as government's concerned, what's in it for us? The most important thing, we bring worldwide tech to the UK. We bring innovation to the UK. And as far as government's concerned, it's really important to have that incredible level of competition. And by competition, I mean it drives the price down, it creates jobs. Companies come to the UK with their culture, their innovation, their ideas, and all of this makes the UK such a hotbed for innovation. My team and I who are on this call today, a couple of them I will name. I know Sijoy is on this call, who many of you may know. He was based in Mumbai, obviously working remotely. Zanessa, Pete and Paul from the UK will be talking to you later because they are our specialists. They're the government of UK specialists who you have the privilege of having on this call. One will be talking to you about finance and banking and immigration. So we are all here on this call, but we're obviously available continuously to support companies like yourself to set up in the UK. I prepared a little presentation, which I think we'll load up now. But the presentation will just really highlight some of the core aspects of setting up in the UK. So we recognize companies like yourselves are an important stakeholder for us. We enjoy the fact that you consider the UK as an investment destination. Our role here is to ensure that your move to the UK is a smooth, it's an easy one, it's a well-informed one. Many a time people say to me, what is it that drives entrepreneurship? And I always write this down because I think it's key. From the perspective of yourself to know what are the key drivers. And the obvious one for me has always been the UK government's assistance. Having a proactive government to support you is probably one of the biggest drivers, I would imagine, for an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship, most people say, is a lonely business as it is. But why would you use DIT? Why would you come? Why would you be interested in the UK economy? Well, I think to begin with, it has so much going for itself. Entrepreneurs over the years, and in the experience of all my colleagues who are on this call, will agree that one of the most important aspects about the UK is the ease of doing business, the lack of bureaucracy to meeting quality entrepreneurs. The other one I always write down because people say to me, Gita, funding access from accelerators to crowdfunding to angels. The third one people say to me is access to customers and skilled people who have been used to building massive global companies, given the size of the economy and the small size geographical sort of, nature of the UK. It's so easy to access people. And, we're right next to the EU and, the geography works for us. So I think these are the key aspects. And now once we've figured out why the UK and these are testimonies from yourself, I think the next most important thing for us is to say, why do you want to deal with the DIT? What's in it for me? Why would I come to the DIT? And besides the obvious, access, market access, reputation, quality of life, sector-specific hubs, the economic opportunity, the access to talent. I think what's really important right now for all of us to focus on is the civic ambition of the UK. And by civic ambition, I think the UK is great guns. It's going big places with empowering people innovative public service, digitally enabling business, and just being a digital influencer. And I think that should be really important to companies like yourself. And then what next? Come talk to us. Find out about the bespoke information on key commercial considerations that we could help you with, including company registration, financing, labor, skills, research, development. We give you a comprehensive regional and local location analysis to help you sort of maneuver the decision around which is the best place for me to set up in the UK. We introduce you to sector networks, including industry leaders, chambers of commerce, service providers, universities, and assistance to develop innovative UK opportunities. So that's really it. Our most important service to you is free, confidential, and bespoke. And I would also like to highlight the fact that which is really important, is the Global Entrepreneur Program. They would be probably a really relevant partner for you to check in with as well, because the important part about the Global Entrepreneur Program, which is on the next slide, is probably the slide we missed, which I didn't talk about, but my colleagues will, is a really important aspect as well, which I think will be instrumental as you plan your UK foray, is how fast-paced and how fast-footed the UK government was in addressing the coronavirus sort of circumstance, and how we as government moved really quickly with regards to funding, furlough, and various opportunities, which Paul, my colleague, will talk a little bit more about. But just to be aware that, the support was out there and still is. I'll flip back to the Global Entrepreneur Program, because I think this program and just the way things have panned out, that now we're in a place where I think we've all realized that we need to look for rulers of the world, people who are going to be world changers. And the Global Entrepreneur Programs come up with a lovely scheme called Tech to Great, Tech Digit to Great. And it's really about, do you have a technology that can save the world's, next biggest problem, greatest problems? We would look for investors like yourself and entrepreneurs and innovators like yourselves, because what we do with this program is we open doors to innovators and customers. We're here for your strategic advice, because I know entrepreneurs would often regard and respect that. We are looking at female founders. We're looking at technologies which make democracy more transparent and effective, giving a voice to all. We're also really keen to look at the environmental protection technologies. And of course now, hot on the press is medical tech, addressing the most vulnerable in our society. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to stop there, because I think that gives you a flavor for what the DIT support is about, the breadth and the depth of what we can offer you. And then we can probably take it further, in our discussions.
Thank you, Gita. I would now request if I could call on Manish. Manish Jar. He's the founder of Neosap EdTech. Manish, are you there?
Yeah.
So Manish, sorry, I think you'll have to, Saloni, if you can please unmute Manish, that will be helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. The gesture works.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. Yes, Naveen, go ahead.
Yeah. So Manish, if you could start off with your experience, what are you doing in UK, and just give us a little highlights of where you are in your evolution, and what do you see UK kind of adding on to your startup and product?
So it's great that Gita talked about the Global Entrepreneur Program. Actually, it was the Global Entrepreneur Program that brought us here.
Excellent.
I had sold my last company, and back then I was staying in Shanghai because China was our largest market. And I was looking to do something new while continuing with that company. And that's when I bumped into some people at the Global Entrepreneur Program office. And we spoke for a few months. And then ultimately they extended an invitation to Neosap Tech to come and set up shop in UK as part of Global Entrepreneur Program. So that's how I came here.
Okay.
Great experience. It's been a great program. So I guess in a lot of ways, it was very easy for me because they assign a deal maker, somebody called a deal maker who himself or herself is a person of substance who either is an investor, entrepreneur, someone who has a lot of experience, and that person is by your side all the time. So I have a gentleman called Simon Sprins, who has been very helpful. He's just a phone call away, so I call him up so from step one, I think generally the processes in UK are pretty simple. And I had a lot of deja vu because whenever we do things in India, I think pretty similar, probably because we have the same lineage. So a lot of things same. In fact, on the lighter side, sometimes I had to stop back and think, this is where it is coming from when we do this in India, you know? So yeah, other than, I think the experience of opening a bank account, and that too, I think Paul is here, who helped me. And then I think everything is very simple. It's just that you have to sort of make a checklist and go about, I'm talking about the administrative things.
Okay.
In terms of our business, we are in early learning. We have created a fairly revolutionary product focused on 0 to 3 early learning, which is very early, which is to be done at home. It required a lot of research. So based in London, but I sourced expertise from all over the world. So I had a couple of subject matter experts, consultants in US, here in UK. Of course, I had employees in India and UK both. Dev team was pretty much based out of Pune. And we finished our development end of last year, and we launched in India in February. And then now we are, of course, in a fairly advanced stage of, building our go-to-market strategy for UK, and then US follows. So that's pretty much has been the journey. Any specific questions, I'm happy to answer.
So, so what exactly is your product?
So neuroscience says that majority of brain development happens till the age of 3. 85% of brain development gets done there. And that's a great opportunity for every parent if they do. And there are tested methods available. If you use them, you can significantly improve the chances of a child being bright, brilliant, very comfortable with studies and so on. So basically both IQ development as well as EQ development. The problem is not democratized. Some people know about it. Even if they know about it, arranging materials, paraphernalia is very difficult. So we've created a very easy to use system. It's a combination of digital platform and physical materials. So when someone buys a Babler subscription, they get, it's called Babler Early Learning. They get a suite of apps and a big box of materials. App has an algorithm running. You put in your baby's details and it'll kind of keep refining itself and will recommend activities that you can do with your baby every day. To do those activities, you will either use the materials from our boxes or some other stuff. And yeah, it's very easy. So 1 hour every day and you can potentially significantly improve the intelligence of your baby. So that's the product.
And why UK specifically for this product?
In my last business, actually, I grew out of India. So my first company was in India and took us fairly long time to go out of India. But then we built a very successful Asia Pacific wide business. In fact, we were market leaders in Asia Pacific in our business, and we sold to the global market leader in our business. That experience told me that this particular product, and because I had global ambition, it needs to be based somewhere in the West. And so I evaluated Silicon Valley. I also evaluated Singapore, interestingly, and London.
Okay.
And of course, GP was very exciting. And so ultimately I decided in favor of London. I think it's great because recently I've been talking to some people in the US for market entry. And just because I'm based in UK curriculum or UK education system, especially in school education system, seems to be having a lot of respect around the world. So that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, thanks to the Global Entrepreneur Program, you're in the UK and you're now about to launch in India right now.
India, we have launched already.
Yeah,
Just the lockdown, interestingly. Yeah. But we are selling. We have quite a few users in India now.
Excellent. So can I now request Abhishek Sharma, my next speaker? Abhishek, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So Abhishek belongs to Goki. He's the Chief Marketing Officer. In a sense, he's the man who took Goki global. So Abhishek, please do share your experience and thoughts of going global and what have you done in the UK? What do you foresee? And you know, some comments to early stage entrepreneurs who are building out global products. What's your take and advice to them?
Thanks, Naveen. Privileged to have me here. So I will start basically for the interest or easy understanding of the, the bigger group. Some may know and some may not know Goki. So we are a digital healthcare platform, right? We provide a bevy of services, right from personal health coaches to tracking to wearables, access to data analytics, as well as condition-specific guidance and coaching for the users. And we, as a business, we do have a then plug-in into insurance, where the insurance products get designed based on the platform and the health score developed in the system. So 2 years back, when we started looking at global expansion, or which are the markets where the service with the UK obviously came at the top of the list because of the world-class infrastructure they have for healthcare. Right? NHS is the model, the oldest and probably the most successful model in terms of the public health one. So we started working on that. NHS has various regional trusts which runs into multiple clinics, and each body holds certain number of clinics which they take care of the geography. So we partnered with one of that entity, and we went to their 5 clinics where doctors, along with the treatment for hypertension, diabetes, blood pressure, started giving our digital solution, or in a technical term, what is called as digital therapeutics, to these patients. Because what was happening was the patients were coming, they were taking medications, but the results were not coming in because the patients was not changing their lifestyle or their outlook towards the condition. Right? They were just popping pills, and the results were not moving anywhere else. So this is, we ran this 100-day program over there. We saw phenomenal results, both from the patient and, even the doctors and the clinic staff was very pleasant with the surprise and the engagement, clinically validated results. So that has been the wonderful learning and experience for us, which actually made us develop the model which we implemented back in India since then in the space of digital therapeutics. So my learning has been, is the entry, is the friction of entry into the UK system. And if there is a guidance or a hand holding over there, or someone as your champion who can help you through it, then the things becomes very organized. The things becomes very centralized and easy to maintain. And I'm not only talking about the geography like London, which is fairly well known around. We did the program in Birmingham, right? So which is not just the common destinations which Indian think as UK as London, but we did it in Birmingham. We did it in a very diverse group of customers, and being a cloud-based platform, we actually provided the service out of India. Right? It's not that. Right. So service was provided out of India. So I would say the great thing about over there is because the systems and processes are clearly defined. It helps you navigate that. Whereas at the same time, it can be challenging also because they are so well defined. So for you to find a entry into it to a bigger scale becomes quite a challenge, because unless and until you are into it, it becomes quite a friction over there. On the second thing which I found very interesting and we found very good is that diversity, right? Like Gita also said, it's not only the London, but all the major, I would say, the business hubs, be it Birmingham or Manchester or Oxford or Newcastle, they're pretty diverse. So, and subcontinent consumer, or the diaspora of subcontinent people, I'm using the word subcontinent, not just India, because culturally we are very similar, right? Be it people from Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, Sri Lanka, they are very similar. So that's a huge population base. So that makes it, somewhat, I would say, psychologically ease of doing business also, right? Like previously you also mentioned, it's like a deja vu. So you can relate to a lot of things and understand. The learning becomes faster, even from the consumer understanding. And because of the heritage, we are exposed to a lot of British ways of doing things, which makes it also easy for us to understand. I had experience in various other markets, but I found the UK pretty simplistic to understand that way. Not too much of a new learning or an unlearning which was required. Upgrade, yes. So my experience has been, yes, if there is a support which can be provided to the entrepreneurs or the people who are looking at it, to UK as the potential expansion, which is very strategically as well as financially located, for the entrepreneurs and the startups to grow, both in the direction of West as well as East, I would say. It will be a great help and a great service. And that's what I think most of the entrepreneurs should look at. My only 2 cents for the people who are looking at entering UK as a market is you have to take certain risk. You have to do certain investment in terms of finances as well as, manpower and effort wise. Because being a developed market, I would say, the competition is tough. So there is very, I would say, low tolerance to failure. Let me put it that way, right? Because if you are not doing something which is innovative, something which is proven, result driven, there will be at least another dozen people to take that space, right? Because it's a hotbed or a competitive market. So that makes it, keeps you on the edge also, which provides you great learning as well as exposure. But like I said, so you need to keep on testing. It's not that, you can just go and set up and start things in UK. You need to keep on testing and exploring, depending on your strengths, the way it fits, because opportunities are abundant, but so is the competition.
That's right. That's a very valid point.
So thanks, Abhishek. Now I'm going to be throwing open questions to all the 3 of them, and feel free to kind of pick up in any order and answer them among the 3 of you. My first question, I think, which is also coming out about as a part of all the 3 experiences, is when do you think a startup should start looking at international expansion and globalization? And to you, Gita, I think the question is, at what stages have companies come to you? There's also people who are on the chat asking, what is the qualification for a GEP program? So we'll come to the GEP later, but I think if one is, I would request both the founders to share their own thoughts on when is a founder or when is a startup ready to expand globally. And when I mean expand, I just don't mean a simple form of sale. I mean going physically and setting up offices and doing business over there, getting customers in the new market. And Gita, from your perspective, if you can share 1 or 2 examples of how you have taken a couple of Indian companies global, and what stage of evolution you think they were mature enough.
Sure.
How long has the conversation been with these people?
Right. So I'm happy to go first. I'll take your questions in 2 parts. The first, obviously, is a strategy for the UK. Our deal makers, and Manish is testimony to that. When we met him, he had a clear, driven strategy for the UK. He had a product that he knew would have traction in the UK, and it was clearly, he wasn't just fishing around. He wasn't just looking. He knew that this is where he wanted to be, and he had already identified a viable marketplace. So that makes it really easy for us as government to make sure that we're more effective where, we want to create impact where it's quicker, easier, and faster. So from that perspective, many a time we do keep talking to companies and they say, well, we're just looking for business or we're looking for an opportunity. We haven't really explored the UK market. And then we keep them, we keep conversations going. And it's really important to make the point that we are in for the long term. We're not in for the short term. We're in for the long term. And these conversations evolve, they grow, companies turn a corner, and suddenly, things makes the UK decision gets accelerated. The other point, which I think is a really valid one, and you asked the question about when, obviously when is the right time, but what's sort of the key driver? And I think as both very successful entrepreneurs have already said, it's not a market which is for the faint-hearted. It's definitely one where you're driving commitment. It's a hotbed of innovation. You're absolutely informed. India is such an incredible market to work with because all our investors and all our entrepreneurs and our founders are so well informed, and they've done their due diligence on every country. They know exactly what they're going into. As Abhishek so well articulated, this is a market which, is a forerunner in innovation. It's a highly competitive market. And therefore, that should be your key driver. And then when you're in that niche space, trust me, then you have this entire support of Her Majesty's government behind you. Tenure in business isn't a challenge. Size of your company isn't a challenge. Sector isn't a barrier. It's what works for the UK and what, frankly, we feel will make the country far more competitive and will bring about global strides.
Abhishek and Manish, your thoughts on when do you think a startup is ready for, or when do you think a startup should start thinking global?
Abhishek, do you want to go first?
Okay, I can go first. So in a way, see, there is no, I would say, a tipping point or a one point where you can say, okay, now you go global, right?
Yeah.
It's very much depend on what business you are into, right? Yeah. If you are mainly into, I would say, B2B business, where you are providing a back-end solution or anything, to an existing business over there, you can go pretty early also, because when you develop the system as per the front-end requirement.
Right.
But if you are into a business where you have an interaction with an open market, if you have an interaction with the consumer, or your services are somewhere, hitting the consumer in front or the actual end user, then my thoughts would be that you first need to perfect your product. Right, and it's best to do it at your home ground or at your home pitch, as we say, right? Because there is a very limited time for you to make a mark. There is a very limited time for you, or the opportunity comes to you, and you have to prove it to it. So, like I said, the tolerance towards failure is pretty low, because if you don't perform when the opportunity strikes or when you go, there will be someone else to take that opportunity and move it forward. So it is not about a particular time that you need to have a certain turnover or you need to be a certain landmark in your home country. It is actually when your product and service is ready, and when you are confident with your own due diligence, with your own research, that your product is now at par or superior than what is available in that market.
That's right.
And then you can go. Then you can choose a various route to go on your own. You can go with the JVs. You can find the strategic partnerships. All that will work. But that, I think, is the point which each business need to identify. And like the basics we used to say, do a SWOT. what are your strengths and what are the opportunities which you can align to it, will give a very clear answer.
Manish, your point of view?
Yeah. So I think naturally the common things apart, that you need to have a minimum viable product that you can take to global, or you need you need to be interested in the market. The market has to be attractive. All those things are given, but I think there are a couple of nuances here, which I have learned the hard way. So one, I think you should divide your global endeavor into two parts. One, start thinking about it, start focusing on it, because preparation takes a long time. And if you don't prepare well, there's no point going out and setting up shop anywhere. It just doesn't make sense. You'll burn a lot of cash, you'll come back empty-handed. So prepare a lot. And look, in the post-COVID world, the opportunity is that this entire preparation can be done sitting at home. People are more open to talk to you on using digital media and so on. So that opportunity has suddenly opened up. So one can do that. You need to have somebody focusing on it. So whenever you have a person, so if you're only one founder and if you're busy doing Indian market, better focus on that, because Indian market is tough and it is going to take your entire being to be successful there. But if you're multiple co-founders and there is someone who really can be available to dedicate some time, share of mind to do this, start, you move further. The third is, of course, as Abhishek also said and Gita said, you will need some financial depth to go out, because the purchasing power parity is not in your favor. You'll end up spending 4 or 5 times the money that you spend in India to do anything. And therefore you need little cash available with you to spend. So I think, in addition to whatever Abhishek and Gita said, these are my thoughts.
How do you see the return on investments in the UK now that you've chosen this as a market?
No, fantastic. I mean, UK. So UK plays 2 roles for me. One, it is the central base, which is geographically very appropriate for me to operate the business from. UK domestic public funding in the early childcare space, and if you can access that, then it's an easier go-to-market proposition, so to speak. But then even from sitting in UK, and Abhishek mentioned about the diversity of talent. So sitting here, I can actually have talent that will help me go to other markets as well. And it's a respected location as a company. So when I, like I mentioned recently, I had a pleasant surprise when I was talking to someone in the US, and they were giving me some extra points or extra leeway just because the company was based out of UK. And I was, frankly, I didn't think about it like that, but then that happened. So, yeah.
And to be very frank, I think Istanbul is just a 4-hour flight away, and that's the entire Europe. So you can actually do a morning, evening to all your markets and come back as a founder. So that's the great location strategy and advantage. Okay, now I'm going to twist the questions a little bit. I think I'm going to hit the last one first. So it's both to you, Manish, and Abhishek mainly, and Gita, cover your ears. So here's the question, folks. Do jugards really work in UK? What are the hacks to, enter into UK? And Indian startup mentality, Indian founders, they always love their jugards. So Abhishek, especially you.
Okay, so see, I would use the word jugaad, right? Sure. But because of all the organized and unorganized challenges what we face in India, right?
Correct.
Which actually for a startup is good. It makes us agile. Perfect, right? It makes us agile. It gives us an ability to think on our feet, right? True. And take the on the spot decision, and so people call it jugaad. I say it's the speed, right? Which is very important in a startup environment. You have to stay that agile. So it does work, because what happens is when you go, there will always be unforeseen situation, or some condition will come which was not planned. Right? So in that case, it is not the jugaad, I would say, because jugaad, is not a short-term thing which will work in US. That's the UK, which I'm pretty confident about it. But if you are talking about jugaad on your ability to pivot or your ability to, address the situation which you have faced on the feet by adopting some, solution which has worked in the past or some innovation which is untraditional, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It works, right? But on the same point, I would put a caveat over there. It need to have a ground. It need to have a sound logic to it, because the superficial things won't work.
No.
Right? And that is not for the UK, but for any developed market, you will see it, because the consumer has the ability to look through it because they have gone through that process before.
That's right.
So you have to, I won't say the jugaad, but yes, agility always works, and you have to be agile. If you are not, then you will have more challenges.
Got it.
My takeaway is sophisticated product with high degree of, trying to be agile, and yet you need to kind of have the competitive spirit and edge to kind of compete in UK, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Manish, a couple of questions to you, Manish, which a lot of people grapple with, especially when they're making their first entry, is do you go and hire a sales guy? Do you take a sales guy as a part-time fellow? How do you pay him? Do you pay him straight salary and incentives? I'm talking about people who are still sitting in India wanting to go and, at least do a feasibility analysis and test if their products are going to sell or not. We've seen a lot of companies go to the US and hire, as I call them, these makeshift salespeople. And luckily, after having been in the US for the last 7-8 years, I think startups have realized that's not the way to go about it. But what's your take on UK with respect to sales, and will salespeople really get you your first hires? Will get you your first customers?
So generally, as a matter of principle, and with your permission, let me expand this a little bit. So I think the first step should be to hire people on consulting basis. I'm not talking about salespeople particularly, but I think these markets, whether it is UK or US, the developed markets that there are a lot of very senior people available on gig basis. You define the scope of work for 2 months and you pay them a little sum, and they will do a great job for you. And to that extent, the quality of delivery and the efficacy is far it's very good. You can rely on them. And I think that is a very cost-effective way of market entry. So I would think that you should hire a sales guy only when you're ready to sort of knock the doors and start selling and put the product on the table and force people to write their checks, right? But before that, there's a lot of, typically people end up hiring salespeople and say, oh, okay, now go and do a little bit of prospecting. I would reckon a lot of that work can be done by some other type of consultants who are much senior and who can open doors for you. And a lot of such people are available in these developed markets. Many of them are not available in India because we are still a developing market, but here, a lot of people, US as well. So that's one. Also, salespeople are available on variable cost basis, which is again a unique thing about developed markets, that there are people. I would reckon that one should go for agencies rather than variable cost salespeople. So there are these, so maybe a prolific sales guy would have come out and he would have created a 10% outfit or 5% outfit. He will drive your or she will drive your go-to-market strategy and so on. I think one can look at that. And then ultimately commit to hiring good salespeople on a full-time basis. And there I agree with you. When the time is right, you should hire full-time people. Of course, there'll be a fixed and variable component, but before that, there are a couple of steps that everybody must do, and they're quite cost-effective. If I have answered your question.
Perfectly, yes.
Yeah. Just one point I would like to add, Manish, on this thing, and coming back from the point which he mentioned before also, you need to have first your one fully or a partially dedicated resource to look into the development of that market. right? Because even if you are looking at hiring these consultants or sales agencies or market visibility person, there should be someone who he is working. It cannot be that okay, it's just a reporting that person. It can't be that hands off as an approach. So someone in your core leadership or someone who is has that capacity and the capability to take those decisions has to work very closely, right? He might have to spend some time in UK on working with these people, right? So I think that is also which takes before you set up your satellite office or a branch in UK or anywhere else in the world.
So we have traditionally seen in India that investors tend to push one of the co-founders into the US market, get them totally relocated, and then build out the whole team. So I don't think that's going to be any different in UK, especially
any market.
Yeah,
any market.
Now again, to all the three of you, one quick question, and then we go to Pete and Paul. How do you guys go about building a culture? Now, this is somewhere I think where a lot of Indian startups fail, where they tend to just take the Indian culture present in the office and go and paste it in all the markets. How do you become a global startup and yet, cater to local nuances? Any take on that, folks?
I think the way, and I learned this in my last company where we had 14 offices across Asia Pacific, and then of course we worked in the US. Look, I think the culture has to be more local than global, and it's almost sort of we get carried away when we are building a global business. But people and local culture, actually that's what they are a part of most of the time, and it's important. And even from if you're a consumer facing company, it actually works to your advantage if you have a good understanding of local culture. As a company, you're grounded in, you're keeping your ear to the ground. So I think that's very important. The way I have always thought about it is that your products, your services, the big picture stuff, that has to be global, and that should do the talking. So how much focus you're putting on quality, how much, what kind of design, orientation you have in your product, what kind of customer service do you want, and so on. So those are the big, the mission kind of variables. They have to be global, and a lot of times, in fact, what I have seen is the founder or the CEO's personality actually becomes the culture of the company.
Yeah, true.
Therefore, one has to be very, very careful. And you have to almost sort of keep reminding yourself that whatever you're saying or doing is becoming the culture of the company. So whichever market, and I think this is as relevant to India as to any other global market, that you have to be careful about that. And once you have figured that out, and if you know that these are the 10 things that I want in my company around across the world, I think those are the things that become global. But everything else, including so the way you hire people, the way you promote people, what kind of salary increment raises, how do you measure performance, so on. A lot of these things at times have to have, if not completely local, have to have local nuances. I think they're very important.
Very true.
Yeah.
Abhishek, your take on that?
So I would go one step behind as a person who has been an employer in the different location, and as an employee also. So I worked across US, UK, and other geographies. So one I would say a hack, or like the Jugaad someone said, right, is one, be tolerant, right? Because it's new for you. So you have to just take in the beginning a lot of things with a pinch of salt. And secondly, be a sponge, as we used to say in my last organization. Try to absorb, give yourself, probably, first couple of months to understand those people, right? Not everyone will have an experience being in India also to work, in a international or a global environment. A lot of Indian companies do provide that, but not everyone does. So for anyone who is going as an employer or an employee, I always say, one, be tolerant, second, be a sponge, so that you can absorb it, right? And then when you start seeing that, you start realizing that, you know, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, right? And like Manish rightly said, there is no fixed ratio, but yes, it will always be inclined more towards the local. Even in the big global organizations, if you look at it, their US offices work different than their European or Indian offices,
Sure.
right? Cultural wise, because that's how, you know, they can sustain and engage with the local talent. So it won't work. What we do in India won't work in UK, you know, with the same talent of people, even if the person is Indian. You know, let me say that also. It's not the matter of whether the person is a British or an Indian. It will still won't work, because that's how the culture of the place is, and you have to absorb.
I totally agree with you. So folks, I think here we take a quick segue, and I will now introduce you to Paul Webster. So Paul, I think, is going to be doing a quick presentation on the services that the UK government offers any company, startup, founders coming into UK. And basically, you know, there have been a lot of questions on specifically asking to your kind of a startup and the business you are. But I think Paul's quick presentation will kind of help you understand how the services come off. And post that, the most awaited kind of question, which Pete is going to be answering, is on the visa regulations and requirements. So, Paul, are you there? Do you need the access right now?
Yep, he needs access.
I have given the access to him.
Paul, you have access. You can upload the presentation. Also, come on the screen, Paul. Let's all say a hi to you first.
We have to unmute Paul.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Lovely to meet you all.
Likewise, Paul. Welcome.
Just trying to get my webinar page up for you. Please. Simple. Hopefully. You should see a much better version of me with a lovely screen coming up with to a land alive with opportunity. Firstly, I'd like to introduce a part of what is available for all Indian inward investors when they come to the United Kingdom, and that is part of the Business Environment Advisory Team and our services. They complement Gita and her team on the ground, and we are here at head office to navigate you through identifying the right skills and development of your workforce. Peter will shortly touch on migration and ensuring that you get your global workforce for your business needs in the UK. I am part of the tax, banking and access to finance team. We can navigate you through the R&D tax incentives, the patent box, which lowers corporate tax to less than 10%, as well as navigating you through government programs linked to science and innovation, Innovate UK, Tech Nation, the Catalyst, and Knowledge Transfer Network, so that you can optimize the amount of funding that the UK government is absolutely throwing into the R&D space, with an uplift target of 2.7% of GDP in research and development. And we're seeing increasing amount of funds being put in to the research and development part of the ecosystem. I did see some questions about how can I set up in the UK and how can I do that quickly and easily. This is a Gantt chart, but use it as a checklist. And it can show you that within the first week, the items on the left in bold can be achieved so that you can have a company, an interim business account, and with those two elements, you can complete your taxation registrations and IP/trademark registrations for the United Kingdom and European territories. Because the trademark registration and HMRC, our tax office, registrations take up to 3 months, we really encourage that you start that process early. And even whilst we're still looking after each other and not necessarily traveling and integrating the way we would like to, this is a fantastic step that you can take now so that by 2021, and hopefully the good scientists of the world have the vaccine operational, that we can travel and connect in person, that with 3 months to complete the trademark registration and your HMRC registrations, as we approach the end of the year, you will have all the elements you need to launch your business. And as we move through the second 2/3 of the Gantt chart or the checklist, a lot of those elements can be developed in a matter of business days, if not a week. The only one to call out will be the Tier 2 license. That does require a UK full business bank account. But again, we're only talking about a 6 to 8 week process by the time everything's up and running. So forward thinking what you need to ensure that the critical elements that take time are completed now in advance. But the rest of it, you don't need to activate until you're going to either employ people or do commerce inside the UK. And one part to call out is during COVID, the United Kingdom has always remained an open country for business. At no point have we ever closed our borders. We may have requested that some people from high risk jurisdictions in relation to COVID per 100,000 people in their population may need to self-isolate for 14 days or 2 negative tests. But those very few circumstances are a small time frame in which you can still operate digitally, remotely from the hotel or wherever you are as you self-isolate. But the door has always been open inside the UK. We have also been actively supporting businesses from the very first week in March right through to today, where we've put over £160 billion in to ensure that business and their workforce are protected. And evidence of the success of that has been in our sales in the period pre-February and then in June. And we have seen 100% return to retail sales pre-COVID as to now. The only sector that has declined in sales in June was petrol, because obviously people are traveling less on both plane and car. But that shows you the strength of that the UK on consumption absolutely has had a V-shaped return. The government is still supporting businesses. Last week alone, we had 24,000 businesses receive support at an average of about £70,000. 1,500 of those firms received just under £500,000 in support, with the top 25 firms receiving £7 million. Now, whilst there are lending support available, it's important to call out that lending support does require pragmatic banking credit assessments. That is, you must have 2 years of financial reports. You must have 2 years UK operations or from the Indian parent bank and company. There are a couple of forms where it's a little bit lighter on assessment, but we also have the Future Fund for the very innovative firms who are still in a high growth phase. And that itself handed out 32 checks of almost £1 million to each firm last week. In total, it's now up to 570 firms who are not yet commercial. So obviously banking would be prohibitive, but they have got exciting tech. They have private sector investors, and the British government is matching the private sector investors into British businesses where at least half of their sales or revenues are in the UK. They don't have to actually be internationally headquartered in the UK, but they must have half of their sales or staff in the UK. And if they've raised £250,000 in the last 5 years, they may be eligible for Future Fund, which is a match funding from your private sector investors. So certainly we can go into more detail for anyone who's interested in a private call or a future webinar. So main parts to call out there is it's very quick, simple to set up in the UK. The door has always been open and will remain so, and that there is still support to help you go through COVID. And for those who aren't yet commercial, the Future Fund is there for them. Now, we have touched on that banking can be quite difficult. I want to call out 3 solutions that don't require anybody on the ground. You simply need to register your UK company. You can do that at Companies House yourself for less than £100, and it should go through in about 2 to 3 days, allowing for some operational delays in COVID. These 3 products that I've put in bold are Axiom International Financial Services, Meridian Currency. These 2 are very similar. They share the same platform. They both cost £350. And the business should be, once you have your UK company, with the confirmation of who are the ultimate beneficial owners, that account should be operational within 3 to 4 business days. So within a week, for £350, once you have your company, there is no need for UK staff, no need for UK directors. We can get you a business account that enables you to do your HMRC registration and start paying and receiving funds internationally, all within the first week. For those who are coming from regulated markets or have investors who may want a segregation of duties in relation to the UK business account, there is Protected Trust Services. Now, their service is more granular. It's very focused on a 3rd layer of security, and their application costs £4,000 because they simply follow every single transaction with dual authentication sign-off, including by independent trustees. That does cost more. Where it's most useful is for those who are going for an e-money license and need to set up a head office before they get the FCA license and their formal UK banking service. So that's where PTS would play. They have a very strong Indian portfolio. They're very comfortable in the market and are down there twice a year. So certainly, if you're going into FinTech, they are the customer for you. So there is a range of suppliers for you to set up. If you're looking for full UK banking, firstly, start at home. ICICI or SBI are fantastic banks here in the UK. If you bank with them in India, you should ask them to support you. If you don't bank with them, you may want to start a banking relationship for your future UK activity. If you don't bank with them, but you're already established, you're turning over £6.5 million globally, Santander may look to bank you and support you here in the UK without anyone on the ground. But if not, my job is to navigate you to the most appropriate UK bank to meet your needs and future ambitions. And we have a range of banks to connect you to based on your business operations and what it is you need. There's more information in the slides that Gita and the team can share with you afterwards. Reach out to them for more information. But really what we want to do is simply make it clear and obvious that the UK is open, welcoming, and very simple to set up. With the 5th largest economy in the world, 67 million people who are already back to full consumption. We have 170 plus cities to help you export globally into. We are the #1 location in Europe because we have the most competitive cost base. We have the leading corporate tax regime in the G20, including R&D tax incentives. No withholding tax on dividends. And that means that your shareholders will get the highest possible after-tax returns from setting up in the UK over anywhere else in Europe. And with that, we're here at your disposal to help you set up, navigate any of the issues. Please contact Gita and any of her team, and I'm here to help, as is Peter, who I'll segue over to.
Thank you, Paul. That was really crisp. So now we'll have Peter who will talk to us about the whole visa regime and requirements. Peter, are you there? Also, Saloni gave Pete the screen sharing rights.
I've given him the rights.
Pete, can we see you? You'll need to unmute him also, Pete. Saloni.
Unmuted him.
Hi there, can you hear me now?
Yes, Pete, we can.
We can.
Great, I'm just going to put my slides on the screen. Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Pete Bakewell. I'm head of the migration team in the business environment advisory team that Paul is also in. Hopefully you can see my slides clearly.
No, not
Are they
yet.
full screen?
No, you're not full screen. Saloni, do you have the slides? Can we play it for Pete from our end?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
But Pete, you need to stop sharing.
We'll launch your slides for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll kick off. I'm going to give you some headlines on the UK's visa offer. Once the slides come up, you'll be able to see we base them around A, B, C. So firstly, A, applying for a visa is generally speaking quick and easy, and if you meet the requirements. Just go back to the first slide. If you do meet the requirements, you're very likely to get your visa and to get it quickly. B, breadth. There's a breadth of different visa options available for whichever stage of your business or you as an individual are at. And C, change. There's change coming in 2021, which I will come on to later. I'll just start on the application point. It's not always perfect. We know that, but in 2019, we received 88% of those applications were granted. Actually, 90% of Indian nationals who applied for a UK visa were successful, so above the global average. And in the past year, 97% of applications from India were processed within 15 working days. Again, that's above the 96% global average for 15 working day processing. So to say, ultimately, if you provide the information that's asked for, then there's a really good chance that you'll get your visa. On to the next slide, please. Next, breadth. So here we have a range of different visa routes available under the current system to meet the needs of businesses. I won't talk about them all, but for some of the main ones that may be of interest today, we have the visitor visa. So that allows you to come and attend meetings, conferences, sign contracts, look for premises and things for up to 6 months. We have the representative of an overseas business visa. So this is for one senior employee to come to the UK to set up the first UK presence. It's important that they're not a majority shareholder, but we talked a little bit earlier about hiring a consultant as maybe an alternative to hiring a consultant to begin operations in the UK. This visa might be an alternative to that. We also have the startup visa for people who want to set up in the UK with a business that's innovative, viable, and scalable. And similarly, the innovator visa. This is for more experienced entrepreneurs who have successfully run a business outside of the UK and have £50,000 in investment funds. And actually, the startup and innovator visa, there was a question earlier around the GEP and the most appropriate visas for that program, and those two may well be good options for the GEP program. And finally, as Paul mentioned before, the Tier 2 visa is for skilled workers for employees. There's currently a £30,000 minimum salary requirement, and the job must be a degree level job. And the link there, you can find more information on all of the visa routes. Onto the last slide, the change. So on the 1st of January next year, the UK introduces a new single points-based immigration system. So this means that the visa process for skilled workers, for employees coming to the UK will be streamlined, and the salary and the skill thresholds will be lowered. This means that more skilled workers can come to the UK from anywhere in the world, and it applies to EU citizens and to people from the rest of the world equally. So there'll be no difference from the 1st of January next year. We also have the new graduate immigration route, which launches from the academic year 2020-21, and this will allow graduates from UK universities to stay in the UK for 2 years after they finish their degree, or 3 years after they finish their PhD, to work or to look for work. So that's a really great kind of improvement on the current offer, which I think is 4 months after graduating. And finally, just on the COVID-19 situation, the majority of visa application centres around the world are now resuming their services, so you can finalise your applications if that's what you're doing. But as Paul said, arrivals into the UK do need to self-isolate for the first 14 days. There are some exemptions to that requirement for people maintaining essential supply chains and services, and also arrivals from certain countries. But it is important to note that you can still travel to the UK even if you're not exempt, even if you do still have to quarantine. But my advice would be to check online, check gov.uk for the latest updates from your area before you travel, so you know what you'll have to do when you arrive. I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Pete. I'm sure this is a fairly sought after, section, especially on the visas. But what I would suggest is let's do an in-depth session on the visas, maybe in our next webinar. So Gita and her team, I think there are a lot of interesting questions that have come up in the chat. I'm going to throw a couple of interesting ones to you folks. Paul, I know you did answer the question on setting up costs. Do you mind, kind of for the sake of all the audience, repeating that? As I did see you type in your answer.
Yeah. So people can do it themselves. It will cost, a company formation is about £100. The business account once you have the company, £350. The UK Intellectual Property Office for the trademark is £650. Now, whilst you don't need that to operate, you could find that you're breaching someone else's trademark and that your investment in marketing results in a cease and desist letter, and therefore you've wasted your marketing. Therefore, for £650, we think it's a wise investment. From there, the other elements, you only activate as required. So an employer and public liability, you only need when you start trading or employing. As a small consultancy, it's a £100 to £200. An employment contract template, you can probably get a online legal service for £100 or £200. But what we find is if you go to a professional service firm, what we call the 3 stages, which is the company formation, the taxation, the banking, and the trademark, about £3,000. Employment contracts, review of commercial terms, GDPR compliance, maybe another £3,000 to £4,000. And then when you fully activate your business, it's another £3,000 to £4,000. With the caveat that regulated industries like financial services and pharmaceuticals will obviously have a whole different level of compliance costs associated with them. But for general creative tech consulting services, those figures are certainly sufficient. And if you want to expand into the EU from there, we'd get the EORI, which is the EU export number, which will come with it. Your trademark in the UK and Europe, you might pay another £1,400 to EU trademark, but you'd be covered. So yeah, about £9,000 should have you very comfortable. £15,000 means you've got good advice, good service, and that should address any variables in the quotes that may come through linked to your particular business.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Paul. So there is the funding of £15,000, and you'll have everything in terms of all your compliances set up. So you can consider that as your startup kit whenever you want to go and establish in the UK. So now, Gita, the question I think that if you can elaborate on is, say if somebody reaches to you with their sector or their query, how does your team operate? Do you kind of assign a person? What happens in India and what happens in the UK?
Sure.
Take us through that process, that would be helpful.
Sure. So obviously for convenience purposes, the inward investment officer who belongs to the deputy, who probably be working in the Deputy High Commission closest to you. For example, if it's Nagpur, then it'll be Pune or Mumbai. All the other relevant cities apply. Kerala is looked after by Tamil Nadu. So, your port of call will be our offices in Chennai. So that's the first port of call. You would look for the nearest British High Commission, a DIT officer, an inward investment officer will make a call, will come and meet you, visit you, travel to you when it's okay. If not, we'll set up such an event. We then take you through a one-on-one on the process of your company, what you plan to do in the UK, and we begin, sort of evaluating your plans with you jointly. We are a free service, but we are a results-based service. So, we'd like to make that clear right at the start. So we will be letting you know that, we would be interested to arrive at the number that India is the second largest investor in the UK. We will be asking you at the end of it, how many people did you employ? What was the rough salary sort of range? And where did you set up? Of course, we would know 95% of this, but sometimes we'd come back to you for an affirmation because we are heavily audited. So if we don't, so our figures are also, what we declare to the Treasury, as well as these are figures, these are Indian companies who set up, they'll be checked in the UK, etc. So we make that known as well. And obviously the assurity that this is a confidential service. While it's free, it's bespoke. So obviously without your permission, none of this will be declared. It'll just be the headline figures. We then begin the advisory process, and we would then remotely engage Paul or Peter. And then with our investment services team based in the UK, you will be appointed a project manager. Okay. And that project manager will be on tap for you to sort of direct all your questions to. But throughout the customer journey, we in post will be dipping in, chatting to you, inviting you for events. There will be, some of the very sector-focused events. So if you belong to, say, the oil and gas sector or the healthcare sector, we would bring in a specialist. We would bring in sector hubs to you. And continuously over this probably 8 months to 10 months, we'll be drip feeding you with information. And then eventually we would make sure you go to the UK on one of our missions or delegations. So we get a feel for the UK. There will be a part funding in this. And then the most obvious is, making sure you make the right location choice, and Abhishek had talked about Birmingham and that worked for him. So then there would be another layer of service where we will go down to the regional level, and my opposite numbers in the Birmingham local enterprise partnership will then start liaising with you personally. So it's literally, hand to hand all the way through. And sometimes this takes 3 months and sometimes this takes 3 years, but all the way through, we will be, DIT will be alongside you.
Perfect. So that's a very clear, overview, folks, of, you have a person on the ground here in India, then you're given a project manager over there. Then the project manager's role is to kind of pull in various services. It could be, sector, experts in the field that you are in. It could be law, it could be legal services, it could be real estate services.
Right.
It could be getting you introduced to 6-7 hiring agencies who can get you the best for you to hire. So that's how this whole work is done completely. So it's kind of compartmentalized and beautifully orchestrated to ensure that your project goes through without any problems.
Right.
Thank you for that. Now I'm going to start asking you a few specific questions. Sanya is asking, do you have like a trade-free zone for the creative sector? I think she's kind of asking about the Manchester Digital Hub or something like that. So anything on that?
What we do not have are sort of, what you would call typically a sort of a tax-free zone. We don't have a dedicated, but what we do have are hubs and clusters. And for example, in Manchester, as you rightly pointed out, we have the Media City. London has a great hub again on the creative sector. But what we do have is an all government, blanket R&D tax credit support for the creative sector. And but as far as a zone goes, what we have is what we call sector hubs. So where there's a cluster of expertise and specialism in that area. But we would want to take that conversation further and get down to more specifics and find out how better we can advise you on that. So we've noted that question. We'll come back to you, Tanya.
So I think there was a question from Darit Parekh on, there are FMCG food business wanting to go and set up manufacturing plant. And he was basically asking the first question that I asked you on from DIT. So Darit, I think it's the same way. Approach the, High Commission office closest to you. They will assign to you a person.
Yes.
So for manufacturing and other things, there is a separate life of its own where you'll have to go take a look at the land, or if there are facilities which are already there, or all you have to do is retrofit. So all of that will be done. So please use my offices to kind of connect with Gita and her team, or just write to us. We'll be more than happy. I think even Sujoy has already given all your contact details.
Yeah.
Interesting question from Shilpa Gita.
Yep.
Is you mentioned healthcare as a sector.
Yep.
Does this also holistically involve Ayurveda and yoga-based preventive health platforms too?
It has just started, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. It has, and it's gaining traction, gaining a lot of popularity. There are, and I'll be very honest and upfront about this, when it comes to practices, it's easier. But if you're talking about Ayurvedic product, then, it has to sit between FDA and MHRA, and therefore it requires, a little bit more of specialist advice that Paul alluded to. So, bear with us. But having said that, BIFA set up in the UK this year, one of our bigger wins this year, bigger successes this year. And they're an Ayurvedic company from Kerala.
Okay. The other question I think, Gita, is people are asking, are there programs? I'm just kind of simplifying the question from Hardik.
Sure.
And this would be to any sector. Are there programs that the UK government actively looks at where you start helping people look at Europe for business from the UK? So say a company has already come in once. But how do they look at doing business with Germany or with France or with one of the Nordic countries? How is that connect established?
Terrific. I'm so glad you asked that, because that's something I should have mentioned.
Gita, I think you better go off camera.
Really important part.
Sorry, Gita, you're lagging.
Am I lagging now?
Yeah. So you just go off camera. We'll just hear you for a few. Switch off your camera mode, Gita. The video icon mode. Just say stop video and you can answer the question.
The aftercare, or what we call investor support, is a really important offer from us, and one which I think is really pertinent to existing investors. Because what we do with this service is we keep really close to the global investor to ensure that they advise and influence policy. So a lot of our investor sentiment, as we say in government speak, is derived from global investors. And that's what helps us keep UK at, number 8 globally for ease of doing business. That's what keeps, UK so attractive in talent and skill and visa and immigration tweaks that happen, is that we, and the Indian investors are a key player in this advisory role. All our major tech companies, and from your time managing the major tech companies in India, that they were a really important part of for the migration advisory committee, because they influenced a lot of the decisions that we made with regards to tier 2, tier 3 visas, because our endeavors to ensure that the existing investors in the UK have, we are creating an environment for them which is investor friendly, right? And then from that, we look at ensuring that the companies then from a UK base considers other global markets. And this really is our sweet spot, because we advise MSBs and we support MSBs really, really well in looking at markets from a UK base. And we are targeted as, you know, to ensure that global companies export to the rest of the world. So when you say, you know, do you advise Indian companies to, you know, from a UK base, as far as we are concerned as government, you're no more an Indian company or a Brazilian company or a French company. You are now a British company because of your base in the UK. So from a UK base, you should be using our trade services, which again is really excellent. And we have officers like myself based from Peru to Pune, advising British companies, maybe of Indian origin, to set up in other markets.
Excellent. So I think while I'm seeing some of the questions, folks, I understand they are sector specific. So I think the next one, Gita, we have planned is for a FinTech sector one.
Yes, we want to do FinTech. So we'll have a really great FinTech advisory team from DIT, and it'll get quite gritty and quite technical. We'll do the same for life sciences. This one we thought would make sense if we kept it generic and all about starting up. And then we can, you know, go into a really in-depth sector-based presentation, and also, you know, narrow in on where the clusters are in the UK, where are the specialisms in the UK, and then get, you know, a little bit behind and draw out what Paul was alluding to about what are the exact regulatory framework that, you know, a life science sector would demand or a financial services sector would demand.
So there's an interesting question from Shilpa, which she has pinged me in private, which I'm going to answer on your behalf.
Sure.
The question that she's asking is, does the UK government charge for all these services and advisory? And answer is no, Shilpa. The only charge that they take is how many jobs you can create in UK for them. Best payment you can ever do to the UK government. And of course, in terms of if you're in a financial sector or if you're into leasing and things like that, the kind of money that you bring in terms of investment. So I think folks, ran out of time right now. So what I would suggest is please send us your question. I'm going to take this whole chat and send it to Gita and her team.
Yes.
And we will answer these questions. We will do an FAQ and send it back to you guys. What I would also request is people who are interested in wanting to do a one-on-one with Gita and her team to basically talk about your particular company and what your plans are for the UK or Europe.
Yes.
We will start doing a weekly, one-on-one mentoring session.
Sure.
So please write to us immediately for that. And Gita, I would also like to express at the moment things settle down, I think Mumbai would love to do a startup delegation to the UK.
Of course.
And I would invite all these people who are interested right now to be our first few people who can join us on the delegation.
Of course.
From the way
We're
it looks,
actually working through a virtual one in September for the technology event in London.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not the same, but we'll be more than happy to engage as well there.
Yeah. I think next August, September would be an ideal time for that.
Absolutely.
So folks, let's all go there. And thank you, Pete. Thank you, Paul. Thanks to both my startup speakers, Abhishek and Manish. Abhishek, any parting thoughts from you if you're still on with us? I think he must have moved on. Okay. So folks, this is a very interesting session. This is just any of an icebreaker session, as I call it. We can really go in depth, and that's what we'll be doing. So we will be doing, I think, Gita, we also talked about media and entertainment as a sector, because that is
absolutely
that is booming in India right now.
Yes, yes.
And I think education will be something else, because people are very much
edutech.
Yep. So let's do all these sessions, and folks start writing to us. We'll start arranging the one-on-one sessions with Gita and her team.
Right.
So thank you all for joining us. Take care, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to Naveen and Shabnam and the team. It's been a pleasure. And my colleagues, Paul and Pete, thank you very much for joining us. And to all my colleagues who are on the call, Monica in Calcutta, Sujoy from Mumbai, Anza and Esther, and the rest of the team. I think you have our contact details, so we look forward. We'll mail everybody and we'll begin looking forward to engaging further. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Bye-bye.
You all
Thank you, Gita.
stay safe.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye, folks. See you.
Thanks, Naveen. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gita.